Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Today we got Brian Walker, the man, the myth, the legend, on again. But today we're doing something a little bit different, not a film review, but instead we're going to be talking about Jabrill Peppers. There's been a rumor that's surfaced lately about Jabrill Peppers potentially being a cut candidate. And, we have to talk about this because just how ridiculous it is, and I can't let this go unnoticed. And Brian, as we know, trains Jabrill and he works with him very closely. He has said nothing but great things about Jabrill as a great young man who's making some noise in this league. Last year was his best year to date, at career highs in tackles, tackle for a loss, sacks, passes defended. He's coming off just a splendid season. And I think he's still on his rookie deal. There's no reason to cut a guy like that. But Brian, before we dive into why he is someone you want on your roster, not to really cut for ridiculous purposes, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, guys. Like as always, it's an honor and pleasure to be in guys' presence. Just kind of elaborating and speaking more with the Jabrill situation. I read an article, and unfortunately, the buzz has kind of come up a little bit about it, but and I'm disappointed about it because a guy like that, I can speak for it. He changes not just the program, but he changed the energy in the environment in the city. So, speaking from past and being around him from high school to even college, you look at it with Paramus Catholic. At the time when he was at Don Bosco, Paramus Catholic wasn't that big of a program. He comes over to Paramus Catholic. They end up winning 2 state championships and become a national powerhouse, which lasts longer than almost a decade. And then you think about Michigan, he gets there. Michigan wasn't that big of a, even though it was a brand name, the program was kind of down. And then he becomes a Heisman finalist and changes the narrative with Hardball and all those guys. So my biggest thing is you don't get too many guys like that who can not just impact on the field, but off the field. And you look at the situation with the Cowboys and Dak. Here's a guy where he gets hurt, and you would think that no one else knew how to play football without Dak. So it goes to show you that it's just not the X's and O's. It's the energy that's in the environment. And like I said before, it would be a disservice for the community to lose him.
Absolutely. Anthony, what are you thinking about Jabrill Peppers, the ridiculous rumors, and, what he means to this Giants team?
Yeah, I said it before we started recording. I'm angered. I'm kind of pissed off that we even have to have this discussion. I think it's ridiculous. Cutting Jabrill Peppers in my eyes is a terrible, terrible idea. I know this is an idea that was floated out by one specific reporter. I won't say his name, but I don't like the fact that he started this rumor and now it's gotten some wheels and has really started turning down the streets. It's kind of just he's on his 5th-year option, right? They picked that 5th-year option up. Why would they do that if only just to cut him? It doesn't make any sense from a realistic standpoint when you're building a roster, building a team. They want to preach so many times how they're trying to fix this culture and bring in all these great leaders, and that's exactly what Jabrill Peppers is. So why on earth would cutting him even be in consideration? I have no idea. I think this whole thing is really confusing, and if it were to happen, I would be beyond disappointed. Don't even know what I would say.
No.
Yeah.
You go ahead. My bad. I'm sorry, Alex.
No, it's all good. I think we're all at a loss of words is why stumbling over ourselves. It's Jabrill Peppers, like you mentioned, Brian, is the energy, the life force of that defense. You see him play, you watch him play, and he plays like a man possessed sometimes. There's one specific play that we broke down a couple weeks ago against Seattle when he bulldozes Chris Carson and then sacks Russell Wilson. He forces that sack. I think Dexter Lawrence ended up with it, but it was because of Jabrill Peppers and that just madman mentality. With that kind of energy, makes players around you better. And Anthony, you talk about this all the time with the trickle-down effect. When you have great players, it makes players around you better. And considering the fact that he's on his rookie deal, he's only set to make about $6.7 million this upcoming season. The argument is he has zero dead cap, right? So you cut him, you save $6.7 million that you can allocate elsewhere. But what are you really going to get with that type of money? You're not going to get an elite level starter. Jabrill Peppers is arguably getting towards elite level strong safety. He's very, very talented. He has way more room to grow. And Brian can attest to that. He has so much more to accomplish in this league. And he took such a big step forward last year under this new scheme in Patrick Graham. And I'm interested in Brian, what do you think this scheme did for him? Why do you think he performs so well? Did they give him more freedom and just that mentality to be aggressive and be more, front facing and just attack all the time? but was it the fundamentals, the hard work he did behind the scenes that really spurred that growth?
Well, of course, he worked his butt off, and it shows, especially during the whole pandemic, where others could have just sat down. Here's a young man who worked 2 times extra, harder because he wanted to make sure that new staff, new players, just got the best of him. And the biggest belief why he did so well under Coach Graham's system is it allowed him to be more of a free bird in terms of he can roam, he can get to the box, he can drop back, he can play corner. Like I always say, he did that a lot in high school with under Chris Partridge, who's now at Ole Miss, who's the D coordinator, as well as when he was at Michigan. He did play corner sometimes. He did play safety. He did play linebacker. A lot of times being at Cleveland, they had him 30 yards deep and expecting him just to kind of just sit there without using his talent to become more of like, that guy who can, in a sense, be more of a versatile athlete. The biggest thing for him, and I always say this, is he's a thinker. And I think Coach Graham allowed him to use his abilities, not just physical, but the mental. And I think with that scheme, him being able to, if he sees something, react and respond, similar to what the Steelers did with Palomalu, allow you to blitz when you feel like you can see something. So it was just the versatility of the scheme that I thought was a great match. And without Jabrill Peppers, you will see a difference if they try to do that, because now you don't have that guy who can get from the box and all the way back to deep third,
Yeah, and that's the scheme is something that General Manager Dave Gettleman and Head Coach Joe Judge both mentioned in their press conferences today. They both mentioned how important it is when they're evaluating players and looking to sign new players or evaluating players that are currently on their roster. They have to be good scheme fits. And when you talk about Jabrill Peppers and Patrick Graham's defense, as Brian just explained, perfect scheme fit. We saw him line up all over the place and make plays from all these different alignments and all these different positions. When you talk about a perfect scheme fit, you really are talking about Jabrill Peppers and Patrick Graham's defense.
Exactly. And I'm looking at his stats right now, and it just doesn't get much better than that in terms of how big of a jump he really took. He went from 76 total tackles in 2019 to 91. 3 quarterback hits, 8 tackles for a loss, 2.5 sacks. He more than doubled his total in that area. 11 passes defended, more than doubled in that area. Had his lowest missed tackle rate of his entire career. The guy was a stud last year, and we notice it when he's not on the field. And the thing is, Joe Judge and Dave Gettleman, specifically Judge, love to have guys that are multiple. Brian, you just mentioned it. Those multiple guys that can play strong safety, free safety, corner, they can play linebacker if you need them to. He can play that money backer role, but he's also a good punt returner. You don't find guys very often that can do so many different things and really do it at a high level for $6.7 million. You pay guys sometimes $10, $15 million to be good at one thing. When you have someone that's good at that many things on a rookie deal in their 5th year, going into their 5th year, you don't mess with that. You don't want to compromise that value. But, do you see the Giants? Do you think they should extend him rather than actually try and release him?
I do think they would extend him. I think the smart thing to do is you keep as many guys who bring the positive energy to the Giants program. And I call it a program because the way, the head coach is running it, he's giving it out like almost that college vibe where he's giving certain responsibilities and certain, whether it's like slogans during the week and just that feel. It feels like a program, like, it's not just, hey, we're just professionals. You go home and you forget about football. These guys, especially during a time where they really can't go out and branch out, they're pretty much close knit. Coach Judge has done a great job just making it a family feel, So I think with a guy like that who knows the area, he can only give you a plus because he can have the other guys who are coming in, especially rookies, just like i.e. Darnay. He can show you where to train, where to stay, where to eat. He is your own personal host, and he's in the locker room. So Jabrill is a young man, like I said before, where he's an asset on and off the field. You can tell by him giving to the community. He's done a lot to the East Orange community. His mother is a pastor in a church in Inglewood, and she's a giver as well. So, to lose that foundation would be a disservice again. And I continue to say it. I'm a little stumbling because I'm shocked by the article. I thought that, this is a young man who finally found his niche, and this is a great opportunity. He really should have been a Pro Bowler, but like anything, this is a season that's been up and down, but we'll see by next year. There's greater things to come.
Yeah, I'm shocked by that article as well. And another thing that I'll point out is, this is a guy who wore a captain's patch this year. He was a leader on this team. He was one of only, I think there was 5 captains or 4 captains on the entire roster, and he was one of them. So when we talk about, this article saying that he could potentially be a cap casualty, he's still on his rookie contract and he's already got the captain's patch. He's only in his 4th year and he's wearing that with honor and with pride, and he's already one of the leaders of this entire roster. So think about the message that it would send if you were to cut this guy to save, $6.5 million in salary cap space. It just would be a terrible message and be a terrible look for the Giants and for their front office if they were to do this.
Yeah, I mean, considering the fact that we just restructured Levine Toilolo, I would be very mad about letting Jabrill Peppers go. But the thing is, even if they did let him go, someone else is going to pick up one of the best strong safeties in the NFL. I'm not worried about Jabrill. I'm worried about the Giants. That's the big thing about this conversation is like Jabrill's going to be fine. He's going to go get extended, make his money, and I have no doubt about that. If the Giants cut him, they're losing a captain, a leader in the locker room, one of their best defenders, a guy that brings energy to the field, and he makes everybody else around him better. The Giants haven't had a defender like that in a very long time. But the difference between him and a guy like James Bradbury or Leonard Williams, he's outspoken. He really is a leader. I say James Bradbury is amazing, but he's very humble. He's quiet. He shows by example, and you need to have those guys too. But Jabrill Peppers, his energy, you see it on game day. You hear it before the game. You hear him yelling after every big play. He celebrates. He brings that liveliness and energy to the defense, which makes them even better. He rallies to the football. That is something the Giants did last year that we haven't seen in a couple seasons. When a guy catches the football, they all rally, and Jabrill Peppers is always the first one to get there. He has that JPP type of motor. He doesn't stop running, aggressive, always going after the ball carrier. Sometimes you can't find those things. Sometimes those things are just they're instinctual. You're born with that drive to be around the football, pursuing all the time. And I don't think the Giants have many players like that, and he makes players around him better because of it. So do you think, Brian, if they were to lose him theoretically, how much of an impact do you think that would have on the defense just in terms of losing a player of that magnitude and someone that brings that type of energy to the field?
Well, just a few examples that you guys can relate to. I've seen a movie. I just was watching a movie called Grey Wolf. It was an old movie with Liam, and it kind of just showed just different places and roles that, each wolf had. And for me, the alpha, where it just shows the how and how strong he is, that alpha is important in the pack. Regardless if the other wolves are just as smart or whatever it may be, you lose a guy like that, you lose an alpha in the system who understands the program inside out. He's been doing it since his high school career. And that changes the dynamic in terms of, remember when we saw him attack the fumble against Russell Wilson? And we saw a lot of things where he was showing like he was going to blitz, and he was able to back up and, become a fake spy and get right back to the coverage. From the out and ups with the running backs, being able to guard the running backs, being able to guard the slots, you lose that type of versatility that it's going to be hard, because at the end of the day, you have a guy like Logan. He's a great player, but how long of a great player is he going to be? He's been in the NFL for a long period of time, and Xavier, he just started his career, so he's just learning the ropes, and he was injured the whole season. So the biggest thing for him, the dynamic that I see is you're getting a guy who's getting to his prime on a rookie contract, and he's getting better, and he's a hometown guy. So that just, like I said, you lose an alpha who's in the system. He leaves that. It just changes the dynamic, and you're probably going to have to go back to the same old 3-4 and 4-3.
Yeah, and another thing that I'll say, you mentioned all the other safeties that are on the roster, right? Logan Ryan, Xavier McKinney, and we can even throw Julian Love in that mix, right? The people who will, point that out and say that that's, a reason to move on from Jabrill Peppers will also be the same people that will complain that this team doesn't have enough depth right?
Yeah.
When a player goes down, they'll complain there's no depth. Well, this is why, because you want to get rid of players to save cap space when you have an abundance of talent in one spot, and it's what your defense thrives off of. We love to play that 3-safety set and those nickel and dime packages. Let's keep doing that because it worked last year. Let's not move on from talented players for chump change just because you feel like we have depth now, but once you move on from those guys, you don't have that depth anymore. So I think that's a really important part of this that people are definitely overlooking at this point.
Yeah. And Brian, here's a good question for you. And I think that you are the perfect person to ask this for. We know how good Jabrill Peppers is on the field, but how much of an influence has he had on guys like Darnay Holmes and now Xavier McKinney? They're going to be working with them. Like, what is his role with them? Because I know for a fact he's been helping them develop and really helping them adapt to the NFL more than a lot of people think. And when you lose not only a teacher, but just an absolute menace on the field, you're losing a true leader, someone that can mentor and help these younger guys adapt. And that's something that you can't replace all the time, especially because he already has the camaraderie with them. If you bring in an older veteran on a stopgap deal, that has just no chemistry with these guys, no familiarity, it's different. Those guys are close. They know each other. It's like basketball. Like, you just know where a guy is on the field because you know them. You know where they're going to be when you pass the ball. Like watching Derrick Rose, he just throws the ball to like random places and there's guys there. It's like, Jabrill Peppers, he's like that. He knows where everybody is and they all know where he is because of that chemistry. How important is that for them?
Well, you look at it with the prime example with Tampa Bay. Tom Brady gets there, it changes the dynamic of the system in terms of how you want to prepare and how you want to train. I think ultimately the fact of the matter is Darnay came to a system or to a new city 3,000 miles away from UCLA all the way to New Jersey, and there was really no foundation in terms of the Giant way. I felt like Jabrill gave a blueprint, not just with the offseason, but during the season. Even Logan Ryan, he wasn't a Giant before. He's never been a Giant before. So Jabrill is the veteran in that staff or that backfield where he not only was helping the guys off the field, but like I said before, he was doing things and just how to maneuver. New York City is a big city. Not everyone does well in New York City because it can be a distraction. If I'm from Milwaukee and I come to New York City, it's a bigger situation. So I think what Jabrill did and has done to the younger guys, and he's a young man still, he's just brought a foundation to be stable. And when Darnay came to me, I can remember, Darnay's pops just telling me, he appreciated Jabrill and I because we're like a family. We all move like a family and there's no egos. We all want to see someone well. And if you mention, the NFL is a room full of a lot of alphas. If you bring a guy who's just here for one contract, I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of an ego because he's not as confident in himself. Like, look, there's all these safeties. I might have to just do my job and that's it. So I feel like Jabrill off the field has allowed everyone to blossom and not be selfish. So he was more of a selfless person. And that's the biggest thing I think he's brought to the rookies, especially Xavier and what's his name, Darnay Holmes.
Yeah, there's a couple great things that you mentioned there that I want to hit on. One of them being the foundation that, the Giants are trying to stabilize, and then the large market being in New York. First of all, with the market, I feel like that's the only reason we're talking about this because the New York media is just crazy. The New Jersey media can just throw things at the wall and the Giants fans will, reach at it and then they can just start crazy rumors, and the media really has a lot of impact on New York sports, right? And then in terms of that foundation, because I'm a huge Joe Judge guy. I absolutely love Joe Judge, and I've been listening to everything he's been saying very carefully since he got here last January. And one thing that he said, his mission for his first year was to lay the foundation. That was really his only goal. He didn't expect them to be, a great playoff team. He just wanted to lay the foundation and set the course right for the future. And one of the big aspects of setting that foundation, in my opinion, was Jabrill Peppers. Him coming into his own this season, Patrick Graham's scheme, he was a huge part of laying out that foundation. And I think that it would just be really damaging to this team to take a big chunk out of that foundation by cutting Jabrill Peppers. And so I just don't think that it's a realistic option for them. And again, it ties into the media. I think that this is really just a fabricated rumor by the media, and I think it's ridiculous. So, I basically have given my whole thoughts and opinions on this. I just can't believe that we're even talking about it, man. It's when we're really talking about the foundation of this team, Jabrill Peppers is one of our largest pillars for success.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, Jabrill letting him go only hurts the Giants. It doesn't hurt Jabrill. I mean, it hurts him in terms of chemistry, but he'll be fine. He'll go on, have a great year. He'll, sign a multi-year contract, make his money. The Giants are the ones that really hurt the most from this situation if they do cut him. And if the Giants really have the audacity to cut someone on their rookie contract who's an integral part of their defense, I mean, we can't stand by and let someone like that slide. That's just malpractice to a T. So, with that being said, Brian, Jabrill being such an impactful player off the field, and especially when you're training with him and teaching these younger guys, I think it's really important to know, do you think he's worth that big time extension? Do you think the Giants should extend him right now instead of even considering the cutting thing? Because I think that's totally irrelevant.
I think the Giants, can you hear me, guys? Okay. Yeah, sorry, something popped up. But I think that the Giants should extend him. I think it becomes a situation where, say you keep him on a 1 year or you franchise him. Now it becomes this contract issue where it becomes like how Dallas had this scenario with not just with Dak, but with a guy like Ezekiel Elliott. It becomes this drama. And especially like Anthony said, this is media capital where a lot of guys, a lot of beat writers just make up stuff sometimes just to have free will and just to be the first one to say something. So I think you take care of the business now so it doesn't have to linger on to the season. I think, like I said before, people always do well when they're happy. You don't want him to have to think about a contract every time he's heading into the game or, he's worried about getting injured. When you have a guy who's stress-free, it changes the locker room. And like we talked about, you think of Ray Lewis. We never heard about Ray Lewis having to deal with contract issues. You really don't hear about these guys, like a Jerry Rice, and I'm not comparing them in terms of, Jabrill's the next Hall of Famer, but we talk about the heart of teams, and I do feel like he bleeds red and blue and white. He's definitely a New York, New Jersey guy who, truth be told, he changed the landscape of New Jersey football.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've been hearing his name for a long time. Like, I remember when I was in high school, I was hearing his name at Don Bosco, like someone there. And he was like, Jabrill Peppers, like, this kid's insane. And I was like, I wish he would go to the Giants one day. And of course, now he's on the Giants. And it's like, this kid's special. I mean, watching him at Michigan, the explosiveness that he was able to obtain, then he transfers positions. Once he gets to the NFL level, he's playing free safety now with Cleveland. Then he transitioned to strong safety, which I actually think benefited him. I think that was one of the biggest things that actually helped him because now he knows how to play both positions. Like playing free safety, you're more playing coverage, and now he plays strong safety. He can play those zones better. He has a better feel for that middle portion of the field where it can be no man's land, like you mentioned a couple of videos ago. When you're standing in the middle of the field and there's guys running around you, there's crossers going across, you feel like you're in no man's land. But he knows, he feels, he sees it better because he's had that Hawkeye's view from free safety. Now he's in the box. He's dropping back into cover two, whatever it might be. And he's sitting there and he has a better idea where people are going because he's seen it from like a third perspective almost, being more in the secondary. So I'm really excited to see what Jabrill Peppers does in the future. I think cutting him is off the table. If they did that, I would probably freak out and like throw my computer out the window and then charge Dave Gettleman for it with the money he just saved. So that's kind of how I feel about it, guys. But do you have any last words, Brian, on just Jabrill in general and, what kind of season you expect him to have moving forward?
I think my last words, I almost feel like this is a monologue right now. I'm doing a play or something. No, but my last words with Peppers is that you don't get too many guys that come around with that type of character, that type of ability, and just the marketable. Like I said, we're in a landscape where this is immediate capital. You have a young man. It's almost a Disney story. He grows up in the area and becomes a giant. It's rare that you get these type of guys. And so you never know. Sometimes you might think the grass is always greener on the other side, but truth be told, you don't know what's going to happen or what you bring to. And, not knocking a lot of the rookies but a lot of the other secondary guys have had injury issues. That's the reason why we were able to get a Logan Ryan. That's the reason why, Logan came because Xavier got injured. So you don't know who's prone to this 16, 17 games, especially now that you're going to be playing more games in the NFL. You need as much depth as possible, especially with now that offenses are spreading out 5 wide and tight ends are receivers now. Kyle Pitts. So Jabrill is important even for that factor because more Kyle Pitts are going to come into the league, and it's not that many Jabrill Peppers who can guard those guys.
That's a great point, Anthony. What are you thinking? Any last words?
I mean, you know where I stand, man. I want to see Jabrill Peppers extended. I want to see him continue to be a part of the Giants. I think he's such an important part of the Giants currently, and I think he will continue to be. I think that this is a bogus rumor that was made up by a beat writer trying to get clicks, but who knows? You know, sometimes where there's smoke, there's unfortunately fire. I hope that this is not the case. I really hope this is a bogus rumor. And I feel pretty confident that it is. They picked up his fifth-year option. I think they did that for a reason. They know what they have in Jabrill Peppers. They have a guy who's realistically already one of the best safeties in the NFL. So, you know, I love Jabrill, and I really hope to see him in Big Blue for the rest of his career.
Absolutely, guys. Well, Brian, thank you so much for coming on Fireside Giants again. Always welcome here. You know that, my guy. We always have fun, and I'm excited to do another film review in the coming days. We'll find a good player to do. Maybe we'll do Xavier McKinney, some other clips, or we'll do, you know, Julian Love. I know we talked about doing him as well. Yeah. So, but I'm excited. I'm excited for the future, man. It's going to be fun to watch Jabrill Peppers this year and break down his film after this upcoming season. I think, you know, they would be foolish. They have a ton of cap space moving forward. So, I know next offseason will be the time to extend him. They have the leverage to do it, and I think that's what will likely happen instead of these BS rumors we have to talk about on a Tuesday afternoon. Not ideal, but you know, things have to be done when we have the resources to shut it down. But of course, I really appreciate you coming on, Anthony. Always a pleasure. Be working alongside you, my friend, and we'll catch you guys on the next video.